Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is about taking an MR2 engine out of a Toyota MR2, which literally can be done on your driveway just by using an engine hoist and some axle stands, obviously with a car jack as well, as you can see in the video. Any comments, let us know down below. Any questions you might want to ask. I hope this helps you guys. So the first thing to do is remove all the inspection panels and get the engine lid out the way, just because it's easier, because you have more access to get to all the loom. So now we're just removing all the clips inside the boot so we can get the boot carpet out so we can access the engine ECU. This isn't too hard. You can see all of the plugs. You just literally undo all the plugs you can see and pull out the loom towards the engine bay. So we've literally just taken out the boot carpet, the standard ECU, which is here. And we've come across these wires, which I think is possibly to do with the Apexi boost control, although I'm not sure yet because I haven't traced the wire all the way through. But I'm going to have to mark these wires in what is or what goes to where from that wire, because I'm going to cut that. So I'm going to mark one black and one white, and then that way I can get this loom completely out and keep this loom also separate. So now I'm just removing all of the rear lights so we can get access to the screws that actually hold the bracket in, which hold on the bumper, and there is a reason that actually we want to get the bumper off, as you will see later in the video. Now we've actually got the rear lights removed, we can actually get those brackets off, which are actually on the top of the bumper and below the bumper as well underneath. They are actually plastic tabs, which actually can be a little bit fiddly, but they do come off. Now, we have actually taken off the spoiler side pieces here, and that is actually just because we're taking off a lot of parts to go for our turbo track build project, which is towards a hill climb against Auto Alex. Now we're actually just jacking up the car, so we can actually get a set of axle stands which go on each side, just so we can actually drop the engine out the bottom and then eventually lift the car up over the engine. We are going to drop the engine onto a dolly so it comes out nice and easy, and if you haven't got a dolly, then some people do actually lower it on a car jack, although a dolly is quite easy to use, so I would highly recommend a dolly. And the best thing about this conversion is this can be done on a driveway. I have done this for many years. I've been in the MR2 scene for around 20 odd years, and I have done many conversions on a driveway. So yeah, all you need is an engine hoist or even a jack. Some people do it with a couple of jacks each side, but engine hoist is easier because that'll lift the whole car and they're not that expensive, so definitely use one of those. So just undoing the throttle cable on this end just to release that. I actually thought it was broken, but it actually has just popped out of the throttle bracket. Now, I might actually need to try and use this cable, but I also might need to get another one because I don't know if it's stretched or damaged the cable. But we have to remove that, move these intercooler pipes, take all these out of the way. Obviously all the loom which is attached to the body we have to undo. All the coolant lines, everything has to come undone, and these aren't the easiest engines to actually work on. And here, just like I said, I'm removing all of the parts around from the engine bay that actually fit on the chassis. You want to remove all of the plugs, all the screws, hoses, and everything all around the car. But there is a guide down below that tells you roughly what you need to take off, although I may have missed a few bits, but most of it is there for you. As you can see, looking in the engine bay, you have to make sure you undo all of the bits around that are holding the engine to the body. So we've had to undo all of the starter motor and everything like that. These could have stayed on, but we have to remove the main earth cable, which I've removed just here. So you remove that one, and then while you're there, that one has to sort of come off anyway, so you just get it out of the way. Also, we've undone the big vacuum canister. We've moved that out of the way, mainly so we can get to this mount. This is the main purpose of moving everything out of the way. And we've also undone the gear selector cables down there. Now, there is some spade connectors on the top. If you can see there, you follow the gear selector cable just down at the bottom there. You see that? as you can see, there is a little spade just there. We're going to go underneath and just hammer these out. There's one there and there's also one there. So they tap up, and then these gear selector cables move out of that selector bracket housing. Also, we've undone these pipes here. Also, we've removed all the wiring which went inside into the interior. So we've looped that through, and the only one we've got left this side is this 17mm fuel pipe, which this bolt comes out. The reason we haven't undone that yet is because we don't know how much fuel is in this vehicle. If we undo that, there's going to be a lot of fuel come out. So the last thing we want to do is undo that, have loads of fuel come out, get it all over the floor, and then we've got to go underneath it yet. So that's going to be the last thing that we undo before we remove the engine. We've just got a few more bits that side, but we've removed all of the plugs, all of the looms and everything like that. So this is almost ready to come out on this top end, but we've got to go underneath, and then I'm going to remove all the drive shafts and everything like that. So as I said earlier, we're going to remove, hopefully, all the drive shafts, all the hubs and everything underneath. So our next job is literally to lay underneath the vehicle. We've also got to remove this big rusty exhaust. That's got to come out the way, but we are going to remove the whole subframe. Now, if you're doing the conversion and you're putting it straight up into another MR2, you can take the engine out on the subframe, but we're going to take the subframe off on this occasion, away from the engine, just because we want to paint the subframe anyway, and a lot of these we're going to repaint and clean up as well. So, and the same with the anti-roll bar. And guys, if you need any help taking one of these engines out, whether it's a turbo or a non-turbo, drop a message in the comments down below and I will do my best to help you guys. So on this side of the engine, we've just got to undo these aircon pipes. Because it's a turbo, it's got aircon, so we're going to undo these. They're 12mm, these come off, and we've got to take this coolant pipe out the way as well. Luckily, this doesn't have any coolant in it, where it was obviously crashed at the front, so all the coolant went out. We've also got to undo those 3 bolts there, which is a mount bracket, so we can actually get that away from the engine. And to lower the engine, there is 2 14mm nuts holding on to that actual engine mount, so all of this won't be in the way. So now we're just removing the hub nut, which is a 32mm, but not removing it completely, just so we can hammer through the shaft. I would recommend spraying some WD-40. We are also undoing all of the 17mm bolts that actually go through, holding the lower arms to the hub, because we're going to remove the suspension and hub completely away so we can pull the shaft out on this occasion. You don't have to pull the shaft out, that is entirely up to you. So yeah, look at my face, absolutely filthy. I love it. So much easier when you've got a ramp, but we don't. So we're just undoing this bar now. There's a 17mm behind here, which is a little bit of a pain to get to, and when you don't have a ramp, you can't quite get the breaker bar underneath to, you know, loosen it. So it's a little bit of a pig. I'm hoping I can squeeze my gun in there, the impact gun, and that should hopefully do it. The drive shaft there, that come out nicely, and as you see, I took the whole suspension strut out with the hub, just because it was a lot easier. So what we're going to undo is we're going to undo all the exhausts, take all that out, drop the subframe out as well. Obviously we've removed the heat shield here. Where is it? We've removed the heat shield, and then the next thing we're going to do is remove this subframe out the way as well. Now, it's a lot easier to remove the subframe out the way now, rather than take the engine out with the subframe, then remove the engine. And we're going to be painting the subframe and stuff anyway. Well, I say we, mine at MJG is going to paint this for us, so that looks a bit nicer and not so rusty. So we're going to undo everything underneath that we need to do, but I thought I'd just explain that. So let's crack on. Right, so now we're going to undo these 14s down here. That will remove this, well, it will remove the subframe away from the mount, and then we've got to undo the downpipe. So as you can see, we've just dropped the subframe, and there is the white anti-roll bar with the poly bushes, and you can see the exhaust we've got to undo, and then we're just going to drop the engine literally right out the bottom. Buzz, you can't come under here. No. So we've got the downpipe off and the 17mm bolt which holds the engine in, and now it is literally rocking on the two side mounts. And for those that don't know, the fuel tank is sitting there in the middle. We've got to undo this clutch line, and then the pipe which goes to that fuel filter, I think, is the last thing that we need to take off before we then drop this whole engine out the bottom. But we do need to drain the oil first. Hello, Buzz. So on this side, which is the driver's side, underneath this mount, there's like two studs that go from the mount downwards like that. And then they'll have two nuts either side, which are 14mm. So we've got to get underneath, get a long extension bar, and I'll use the impact gun and undo those 14mm nuts on that side. So that will drop that side of the engine. I'm also going to undo probably the engine mount. I might not have to. Sometimes it gets a bit stuck, but the annoying thing is the intercooler's going to be slightly in the way of that bolt, but we might get away with it. Sometimes it's best to loosen it to give it a little bit of less pressure when taking the engine out. And then coming around the opposite side, we've just got to get to this mount here, which is a 17mm. That will just literally be a ratchet or a gun, whatever way you want to do it. And there is a little nut at the other end, so literally just undo, slide out, and that will drop down that way. We've undone pretty much everything else. The only thing we haven't undone yet is the 17mm, which we're going to undo in a second, and really hope that doesn't leak out loads of fuel. We don't know how much fuel there was because, again, this has been crashed. We don't know how accurate the fuel gauge is showing on how much fuel it is. If it's a full tank, then that's just going to keep pissing out, which is not going to be fun, but let's see what happens. So annoying. So this is the mount that we were talking about. You've got two studs, and then you've got nuts that hold onto there. Now, it got stuck because the bolt coming out of here is very close to the intercooler, so we have actually butchered the intercooler. You can remove it, but it was already knackered, so we didn't need to, and we're going to get a better one. So that is the mount removed, and the engine now dropped. So now we actually have the fun bit, which is get a strap and lift the car above the engine. We're a little bit close to the van actually, but this should be fine. And we are a little bit close to this, but we don't need this anyway, and it's actually damaged on that side as well. So for those of you who don't want to damage it, just make this a little bit looser so it sits higher. You can even put it that high up. But here we go, let's lift this up and see what happens. It'll probably do a wee-wee at the front because all the coolant will drain towards the front as well. And as you can see, that is one engine out of an MR2 that you can literally do on your driveway with an engine hoist.